Hey, Dave Shrine here, very excited to tell you all about Cloudways and show you exactly how to get your WordPress website up and running in Cloudways. The thing that I love so much about Cloudways, it gives you ultimate control over exactly how much you pay for hosting. So if you're starting a brand new website and you're not getting a lot of traffic, you can go for one of their entry-level server options, choosing from any of the different providers they have available, and ultimately decide exactly how much you want to pay. And at any point in time, when you know that you need more resources, you can upgrade. Cloudways makes it incredibly easy. Their support, which comes with your hosting, is decent, but if you need more advanced or, quite frankly, US-based support, you can pay more for additional support. So depending on what your needs are, Cloudways could be a fantastic hosting option for you, and the thing that I like most about it is it just keeps getting better. So what I'm going to show you now is exactly how to get your application up and running in Cloudways. It's actually not difficult, but watching me go through it could really expedite the process and help you ensure that you've set it up exactly the way that you should. So let's take a look. Once you log into Cloudways, if you have not already created a server, you will be prompted to create a server. In this instance, I've already created all of the servers that I'm going to use. So what I want to actually do at this point, after choosing my server, after choosing the resources that I want, is I want to create what's called an application. And those are really the two resources that you have to manage inside of Cloudways. Server is what you put your applications on, and applications can be as many as you want on one server. Just know that the more applications you have, the more processes that will run. The more processes that run, the more server resources you will need. So what we're going to do is we're going to move up here and we're going to click on applications, and that's going to load all of our current applications. And what I want to do is create a brand new WordPress installation. Now what's great about Cloudways is you're not limited just to WordPress. Once I choose exactly where I want my application to be installed, I'm going to click Add Application, and then it's going to ask me what type of application do I want to install. And so with Cloudways, you have several options. Now, a lot of this is above my head. I stick pretty much with visual tools that I know, but I can tell you that when you install on WordPress, you can install version 5.6, multi-site, so you can have one login with multiple websites. And if you do the clean version, that will have no Cloudways optimization. And I think that expands primarily to the robot, the bot protection, as well as their caching service. You might need to look at it exactly what else at the point in time when you're watching this their optimization might include. I found their optimizations to be fantastic, so whenever I install with WordPress, I do version 5.6. I don't utilize multi-site just because of the complications that I've run into trying to extract a multi-site from like a single website out of a multi-site into its own. So I always just go standard version 5.6. Now down here, I'll use this quite frequently as well. I will install WordPress with WooCommerce onto my application. That's what I'm actually going to do for this example, is the install of the WooCommerce. But if you don't choose it here and you want to add WooCommerce later, you can. I am not aware of any specific optimizations that Cloudways offers with WooCommerce, so you're not missing out on anything, at least nothing substantial that I've discovered. Right here, you can actually do a custom PHP app, and we use a custom PHP app at my marketing agency, the Blocks Agency. We use a custom PHP app called Machforms, Machforms. We use Machforms as our forms application. And so we were able to move from traditional hosting onto Cloudways because we could run a custom PHP app. Down here, you can install Laravel, or you can install Magento. Both of those I am unfamiliar with. I know what they are. I've never used them, so I don't know what type of quality they offer. But if it's similar to what they offer with custom PHP apps and WordPress, you can probably count on it being pretty good. So what we're going to do for this application is we are going to install WordPress version 4.8.0 with WooCommerce 4.8.0 with WordPress version 5.6. We're going to give our app a name. We're going to call it the Blocks Agency Demo. And then we get to select where we want to put it in our project. So up here, you'll notice there's servers, applications, team, and projects. Projects is a way for you to organize applications that are across multiple servers into one category. So we are going to put it into the Shrine Websites category. So even if you have a Shrine, 3 different servers with 3 different websites, but you want to look at all 3 of those together, that's what a project is for. So we'll click Add Application. One thing to note is it takes a little bit longer to add an application on Cloudways than I've been accustomed from other services. So right here, you'll see that it says Adding Application, and it'll take approximately 2 minutes. Sometimes it takes a little bit more, sometimes it takes a little bit less, but it's pretty quick no matter how long it takes. The one thing to note is that when it's installing a new application, you cannot make any changes to anything on that particular server. The server's still active, but you can't make any changes from the Cloudways administration side. So we'll wait for this to finish installing. So I fast forwarded, and it did take a little bit longer than about 2 minutes. It was probably more about 4 minutes, but we're done now. And so to navigate to that particular install, that application, what we're going to do is we're going to go up here in the upper right-hand corner, and we're going to type in our application name. So we're going to type block or TBA demo. And so that will take us to the server details on this particular install. And so over here on the left-hand side, you can see access details, monitoring, bot protection, domain management, cron, SSL, blah, 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 blah. What I want to do is I want to give this domain, because right now if you look, it's WooCommerce and it's got this really long URL. It's the default one that they assign from Cloudways. I want to make this demo.theblocksagency.com. So to do that, I need to create an A record as a subdomain inside of my GoDaddy. That's where I am hosting this particular domain. So I'm going to use my IP address. And so your IP address right here under Application Credentials, it shows your IP address. So I'm going to log into GoDaddy. Once I log into GoDaddy, I'm going to navigate to my products. So I'm going to go down to My Domains. And I'm going to navigate to the Blocks Agency domain. I'm going to do Manage DNS. And from here, I realize I actually set up Cloudflare to host my DNS. So what I'm going to do is rather than changing this in GoDaddy, I'm going to change this in Cloudflare. And this is actually a great example. Sometimes we will set our name servers to different locations, and wherever you host your domain, all you have to do, whether it's with GoDaddy or Cloudflare or with your hosting provider, just log in and you need to add an A record. So we'll do that inside of Cloudflare. So if you look here, I've got theblocksagency.com. We're going to go into our DNS settings right here. And inside of our DNS, we're going to add a new record. We're going to call it A. We're going to give it a title of demo. And we're going to point it to our IP address. Once that's added, we'll click Save. And we are going to, in this particular case, we're going to set it to just DNS only. So there's no caching. No caching from the Cloudflare side. And now we can go back into Cloudways. And once we have updated our domain and created an A record, the host name is demo, and then we've pointed it to our IP. We're going to go to Domain Management, and we're going to add that domain that we want for this application install. So we're going to type in demo.theblocksagency.com. We're going to click Save Changes, and it'll take a second to update the primary domain, but once it does, it will no longer be that funky URL that you see right here, but it will be demo.theblocksagency.com. Once it's added, we'll get the notification up in the upper right-hand corner, TBA Demo application domain has been updated. Now, it may take a few minutes for the domain name settings that we did in Cloudflare, wherever you did yours. It may take a few moments for it to update. So we're going to go in, we're going to type demo.theblocksagency.com, And it's already updated. It's already populated. So even though the site title is still this funky Cloudways, it's actually updated the domain to demo.theblocksagency.com. So this domain is ready to go. Now on top of this, what we want to do is we want to install an SSL certificate, and Cloudways has Let's Encrypt built in. You can use your own certificate if you want, but they have Let's Encrypt, and for many purposes that's just fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to enter in our email address and then the domain name that we want to have an SSL certificate assigned. Now, one thing to note here is that it can take longer for the SSL certificate to be allowed to install because the domain will need to populate across the internet. So even if it's showing that it's working fine, like, yeah, the domain is updated, it's pointed to the IP, it's ready to go, it could still take a little bit longer for the SSL certificate to be installed. So we're going to go ahead and give it a try, and we'll see what it says. So I've added my domain name. I'm going to click Install Certificate. And it takes a few moments, just like any changes you make to the application, to install the Let's Encrypt certificate. Just like when you added a domain, it took a few extra moments. Just like when you add the Let's Encrypt certificate, it's going to take a few extra moments. So you can see here that it already populated fast enough across the internet. We were able to get the HTTP redirection. We're going to enable HTTPS redirection across the entire site, so it's going to default to HTTPS for all URLs. And once that's done, we have our domain, we have our SSL certificate, and we're ready to begin making changes on our WordPress website, installing our theme, adding new plugins, and so on and so forth. We're going to click Close. We see that the Let's Encrypt certificate is good to go. It'll expire approximately 90 days, but we have auto renew enabled, so it'll immediately renew the SSL certificate after those 90 days, and you'll still be good to go. How do you access this particular WordPress install? Well, it's easy. Underneath your access details, you'll see that in addition to your application URL, if you go down, there's a URL that takes you directly to your admin panel. And Cloudways generates your username and the password you are to use to log in. So we're going to type in our username. We're going to type the password that they have. If you see, it's click to copy. So you click it, copy it, paste it. And now you're logged into the back end of your WordPress website, just like you would be if you installed on any other host. You can go into Settings and General to change the site title. So we'll call this the Blocks Agency Demo Site. Practicing WordPress and Elementor Magic. Say practicing. There we go. You see we've got our URL set in there. We'll go ahead, we'll change the time zone to Phoenix, because that's where we are in the world. There we go. Phoenix. There. Phoenix. And then we'll scroll down. We'll say the week starts on Sunday. We'll click Save Changes. One additional thing, just in general for WordPress, is I always go in and immediately change the permalinks to post name. So we'll click Save Changes. And because we installed this as Cloudways optimized, you'll see that there's a little icon here for Breeze. Breeze is what they have titled their caching plugin. And so as you build out using Cloudways, Breeze is going to create caching. You can go into the varnish and you can purge the cache at any point in time. Many pages will show you the purge cache at the top. Sometimes there will be pages where you're not able to see it, but if you're not seeing your changes populated, you can go in to purge cache. A couple other things to note back on the Cloudways side. If you need FTP access, Cloudways offers SFTP access. All you need to do is go in, create a username. It has to be unique to, I believe, the entire server, and then a password. And once you've done that, You click Add, and then you use the public IP, the username, and the password to access SFTP. Another item to note is accessing phpMyAdmin. If you are looking at the access details, you will see the MySQL access database name, username, and password. And if you want to look at phpMyAdmin, you click on Launch Database Manager, and that will open up phpMyAdmin. Well, let's see, application settings. We may be able to adjust those here. PHP. Yes, we can adjust our PHP settings right here. So if you need a higher memory limit, if you're using something like Elementor, you may want a 256 megabyte memory limit. You can change your execution time. You can change your time zone, max file uploads, and then click Save Changes. Here are your varnish settings if you wanted to have a particular rule. This is if you don't want certain pages to be cached. And then if you scroll back up, you'll see the backup and restore. I don't particularly care for Cloudways Backup and Restore. It actually takes a long time to load, in addition to being not as user-friendly, meaning you can't title your backups. If you make a backup, it holds that new backup into a cache before you delete that particular backup, but it's still really good. So you could create a backup at any point in time, and it takes a few minutes, just like any other server application type thing. It takes a few minutes for it to back up your site, and depending on how big your site is, it could take a little bit more. But once it's done, you now have a backup. You can begin making changes, and then you can restore your backup just like this. You'll have a drop down of all of your backups. The newest one will say latest. It takes it from the time is done from the server, like the actual server location. So this is not something that you can change. So, depending on what your time zone is, you'll have to make some mental adjustments, but you are able to restore that application. Finally, the last thing that I want to show is how to create a staging site. And so down here in the lower right-hand corner, you have, at this time of the recording, you have the ability to create a clone app staging app. And so you can create the server, so same server, so we're going to put it on the exact same server, create it as staging, and click continue. And that would create a brand new application that is a complete duplicate of your current application, and you could make adjustments on the staging environment and then push those adjustments live to the live environment, selecting which tables you'd like to push. So if there are some tables you want to push and some tables you don't want to override from your staging to your live, you can select that. I don't get much into that because, quite honestly, I don't have to, but that is available. So something that I mentioned earlier let's go to is if you go to the servers, any of your servers, you're going to have some very high-level items. So you're going to have the ability to monitor your master credentials for SFTP and SSH access. You've got monitoring tools so you can see the health of your server, how much CPU is being used, how much RAM is being used, your disk usage, so it's very easy to look at. And down here, if you click on application details, it'll show you which applications are using what number of resources. If you go to manage services will show you what's running, what's not running, and then give you the option to restart different services. And in the case of Varnish, you can purge Varnish across the entire service or server or disable it altogether. Underneath settings and packages, it gives you your defaults. So when you create a new application, it gives you your defaults. I believe that's what this is. I could be wrong on that. Actually, I think I am wrong on that. I'd have to do some research to figure out what this affects. Maximum allowed. There you go. Across the stack, maximum allowed. You've got some advanced settings. You have packages that you can select what you want to run. Your optimization settings, what you want to run on all of the individual applications. How you want your server to function overall, and then you've got maintenance. Down here you've got security, and so this is where you can whitelist IPs. You can't blacklist IPs, but you can whitelist particular IPs. And then you have vertical scaling. And this vertical scaling is where you can add more resources on demand. And in some of the providers, I believe Amazon and Google, you can downscale your resources or upscale your resources. With DigitalOcean, you have to create a brand new server and transfer your applications to that new server in order to downscale. You have your backups, and then the final thing that's worth noting with Cloudways is you do not have automatic built-in SMTP, meaning if you are trying to reset your password for WordPress, often that WordPress reset process is going to be the default, which is click here if you lost your password, type in your username, and then when you type in your username, they'll send you an email that has a link to then reset your password. Well, Cloudways does not come with SMTP, meaning that email will never arrive. So you will need to enable either Elastic Email or use your own SMTP server. What my company and I do for this is we actually sign clients up for Mailgun accounts, and we use the basic, virtually free Mailgun accounts. I think the most it's ever charged any client is like $1.50 per month, and that facilitates all of the email going back and forth. So there you have it. That is using Cloudways to set up your WordPress application. It's a great user interface. It's very easy, very straightforward. It continues to get better. And if you get stuck at any point in time, they have chat services available. Their documentation isn't particularly great, and I personally think that the user interface choices they've made as far as fonts and colors and sizing, it's a little bit hard to read, but it's there if you need it. If you're familiar with WordPress, if you've encountered lots of troubleshooting in the past, and you pretty much know how to manage a WordPress site, you're going to feel very at home with Cloudways. If you like mega enhancements and all sorts of customizations, Cloudways might not be the right fit for you. If you saw the tools and the options inside here that you need, fantastic. If you didn't see the things that you need, maybe reach out and ask them. But by and large, it's a great overall service provider for people running WordPress websites or basic PHP applications. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section. I'd be happy to answer those for you, and make sure to subscribe before you leave.